Carson Beck of Miami opened the AP preseason poll ranked 10th, and the pressure is on as Mario Cristobal and the Canes, in my opinion, must win 10 games in 2025 in order to take a step up from last season and not regress. I think Canes fans will agree with me. Owner of InsideTheU Christopher Stock, who's been covering the Canes since 2003, joins the show to give an update on Carson Beck and Miami as they prepare for their Week 1 opener against Notre Dame. All this and more here on Bailey Price Media Live on the other side. What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another edition of Bailey Price Media Live. If you're watching, joining in, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, become a member of the Bailey Price Media Army today. We got a lot to talk about, talking all things Miami Hurricanes today. We'll also talk some more college football news and so much other stuff as well. But man, we got a tremendous show today and a tremendous guest joining us. It's an absolute honor to have this guest joining the show. This guy has been covering the Canes since 2003. We got a veteran in the game, and he's got a great publication over at InsideTheU. He's the owner of InsideTheU. Our main man, Christopher Stock, joins the show. Chris, how you doing? Happy Tuesday, my man. Thank you for joining.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's crazy just hearing that 2003 and just kind of remembering back. But yeah, it's been a lot of years, but a lot of excitement for Miami this season. I know the fan base wants them to win, expects them to win. I'm sure that we'll get into it, but thanks for having me.
No, absolutely. And thank you for joining. And lots of storylines I'm hearing out of Miami, lots of young talent I'm hearing kind of emerging out in Miami fall camp here. But I wanted to kind of begin our discussion kind of with the quarterback discussion here. Carson Beck, obviously transferring over from Miami. I wanted to discuss what you think his potential is going into the season. How is he looking in Miami fall camp so far? And what are your expectations for Carson Beck this season? Go ahead.
Yeah, Carson's looked good. You know, we've been out there a few times through drills, and we watched some one-on-one, some half-line drills. So we do see him go up against the defense. I think it just looks sharp. You know, he just as a guy that makes the right throws and practices and puts the ball in good spots. And I think what's interesting with this team and Carson and the passing offense, where I don't think the receivers are essentially, you know, not at his level. And so I think the big thing is how much can he elevate these guys? Can good quarterback play essentially kind of bring these guys along? And you touched on a couple young guys. You know, it's game one for Miami. These guys have to be ready. Number 6 Notre Dame coming into town to start it off. So it's not about what does the season look like. It really does, you know, start with this first game, and then, you know, they play in Florida. They're playing Florida rivalry game as well in game 4. So they get going quite a bit. But I'm expecting Carson. You know, I'm expecting him to have a good year. I think he's obviously a good quarterback. He has shown that. The ups and downs, I think that's part of being at a high-level program like Georgia, and we'll see how he does new scenery. But again, I think, you know, the receiving group, and it's not just the wide receivers, tight end as well. They're trying to replace a big guy they lost last year in Arroyo off to the NFL. So a lot of question marks for me. It's just the way I see it. A lot of question marks there with those pass catchers.
No doubt. I have a question going back to Carson Beck. His UCL injury, his elbow injury, is everything good with that? Is he fully recovered from that? Is everything, no setbacks or nothing? Everything's good as in fall camp?
Yeah, as far as we know, and he kind of talked pretty candidly at media day, and you know, again, when we're out there, he's participating in every drill.
Mhm.
Basically, if you didn't know anything, you wouldn't think that he had an injury,
Good.
which is a good sign. So
Yeah.
you're not seeing, essentially, we're not seeing him sit out a bunch of stuff because of soreness. There wasn't a plan of that from the coaching staff going into fall camp. It wasn't like, okay, Carson, we'll go a few days on, a day off. It wasn't presented that way. It was essentially he's been ready to go since the summer, since he was cleared. And really, he looks ready to go from that standpoint. But again, missing spring ball, needing that connection. They're trying to really speed up everything in terms of that connection with receivers. And each and every day at practice is certainly an opportunity to do that. But yeah, Carson healthy, which I think should ease a lot of people's minds, because it does look good, and it looks good when he throws it.
That's really good to hear. That's good news coming for the Canes. What's the expectation down there, Chris, for Carson Beck? Is he expected to play at the level of Cam Ward? What do the pieces look like around him? Kind of discuss that. What is the expectation for Carson Beck's play going into this season?
I think expectations are for Carson Beck to be one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC.
Mhm.
Now, everyone understands how good Cam Ward was, number one pick, everything he was able to do. I think everyone just kind of understands, look, Carson's not going to be that, but he should be pretty good, and he should be essentially better than other recent quarterbacks they've had at Miami, expecting better play than a Tyler Van Dyke, for example, certainly. And I think for Carson, and I said this as soon as he got here, look, as much as Cam Ward did at Miami, individual stats, the offense going 9-0, they didn't get to the ACC championship game. So there's still an opportunity for Carson to have a successful season and do something that Cam was unable to do. And I think that's the focal point for this team, for Carson. It's big shoes to fill. He understands that, but he did step in at Georgia with big shoes to fill. So I think he understands that. And again, I just think that they're expecting to have a good offense with Carson, expecting good quality play, and be one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC.
No doubt, and that's interesting because I was curious on the expectation, because I think Cam Ward played at such a high level, and obviously he only played there for a year. So I'm curious, is there an expectation for a drop off? It sounds like not so much, and that's a good thing if Carson Beck's competing to be one of the better quarterbacks in the ACC. We've talked about the young guys, the young weapons. I wanted to ask you about one of those young weapons who I discussed with Matt Shadell, owner of Cane Sport, a few months back. But Malachi Toney, what's his role going to be in Miami's offense this season? Obviously a young guy, extremely young guy, and will be a true freshman technically, but he's a young cat, but he's about to make some plays this season. What's his role going to be in Miami's offense? How is he looking in fall camp?
He's looked good. He had a good spring coming off the state championship game there for Heritage. He just looks good. He's a natural, just a gifted player. Skill wise, you see it when he catches the ball. He's a slot guy. That's what they're looking at for him in the offense. When touch on how things are going, he's having a good fall by all accounts, and from what I've seen. But will he be ready to make a true big impact in game one against Notre Dame? We'll see. And we'll see how much the coaches actually trust him. Now, I think he could have a good freshman season, but we'll see how he does in game one. I apologize. But another thing for Malachi, he could be the team's punt returner as well. So he's a guy that, again, the quickness is there, the speed, the game-changing ability. Right now, Ray Joseph has that spot there in the slot, but Malachi can certainly – with his play, kind of, compete for playing time. And obviously there's hope that he can kind of be the guy there.
Yeah, especially as a young cat, if he can get on the team of special teams, whether that's the return game or whatever, and make a play, that's really could be where he has an impact early. But also, you mentioned that Miami wide receiver group, you could be at some point expect to see Toney in the first few games or down the line of the season as a young cat potentially. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. We brought up the Notre Dame game. I wanted to go ahead and preview Miami versus Notre Dame. Notre Dame's got a quarterback battle right now. Apparently it's neck and neck between CJ Carr and Kenny Minchie. But Chris, I wanted to go ahead and preview Miami's matchup against Notre Dame. What are your thoughts on this matchup? How are you feeling about this matchup? Are you excited? Are you nervous about this matchup? What are your thoughts?
I think Miami fans should definitely be excited because it's at home, and Miami does return some players, some key spots. They've got the offensive line. When I talked earlier about the offensive weapons, that receiver, tight end, there certainly are guys that they're hoping step up. And I think with a good offensive line, with the guys they have coming back, they should have a really good offensive line. And I think that's where you look at it, like, can the offensive line give a little bit more time for Carson? Just a little extra time to allow the receivers to get downfield, get open. And maybe that's what it'll take. We'll see how it works. We talk so much about quality offensive line play, particularly in the run game, but how will it help the receivers? And I think that'll be big. I think, again, Miami fans excited that it's at home. It obviously worked out great for Miami, one of the most memorable wins over the last 20 years when Notre Dame came down in 17 there. And I think fans are going to be excited to see what Carson's all about and see if Miami can build on their 10-3 season last year. They haven't had back-to-back 10-win seasons since 03. That first year I started covering the team. It's crazy to think about, but not a lot of 10-win seasons since then. So they're looking to do that. And certainly Carson, the offense, they got to get it going. But as far as expectations, I expect Miami to kind of lean on the run game in that one. I assume Notre Dame is going to expect that as well. So we might see some heavy boxes in there from Notre Dame's defense, and Miami's going to have to be able to be able to catch some passes downfield, I think, in this one.
Definitely. And speaking of Miami's run game, I felt like last season, one thing that led to Cam Moore's success was Damian Martinez. I know he kind of had some struggles up and down the season, but I feel like at times he really leaned on Damian Martinez and the run game overall in general. And that's a big thing for a quarterback, having a run game, being able to take the pressure off the quarterback. Going into this season, how you mentioned Miami's run game, you think they'll be able to lean into that. How do you feel about Miami's run game going into 2025 after losing Damian Martinez? And how do you think that'll affect Beck?
Yeah, and as great as that passing offense was at the end of the season, Miami actually led the ACC in rushing yards per game. So that shows that, and they want to run the ball. Yeah. Mario Cristobal, Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator, he wants that balance. I talked to him at media day. It's a point of emphasis to run the ball, and I think that's they're going to kind of lean on that, regardless of who's at quarterback. They want to run the ball. So Mark Fletcher, Jordan Lyle returned from last season. Those will be the guys that got Marty Brown, 1,000-yard back out of North Dakota State. So those are kind of the three guys that go with. I think they're going to kind of rotate. I think they'll lean on Lyle and Fletcher. Those will be the top two guys, bigger back in Fletcher, and then a shiftier, faster guy in Lyle. So that's kind of what they'll be looking to do. But again, that offensive line will certainly help the run game. But they want to run the ball, and those are the guys that they're looking at this point. But certainly, I'm very curious to see how Fletcher and Lyle do this season, because both of them, for different reasons, do have some potential for a breakout season if they get enough touches, but being productive. I think they're definitely going to get the opportunity, even though I'm expecting them to split their carries.
Okay, that's going to be good if they can lean onto those two backs. That'll take a lot of pressure off of Beck. Now going to Notre Dame's run game. Now they got Jeremiah Love. How is Miami going to stop Jeremiah Love? How is Ruben Bain and Miami going to figure it out? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, they got to figure it out at linebacker. I have some question marks at linebacker. What kind of play Miami is going to get from that group? Now, they brought in Mohamed Torre, transfer from Rutgers. Didn't play last year with an injury. So they're expecting him to be a key part. But they also, Popo Aguirre, he's trying to step up. Wesley Basaint is back once again for another year. But, they lost their best linebacker a year ago. Francisco Maurino off to the NFL. And I just think this group has a lot to prove, and this is a game to do it. Miami's going to lean on their front four. Ruben Bain, as you mentioned, has got to have one of these seasons that we've been expecting, kind of start to finish. And I think this is a game to do it. Defensive tackle, I think you can get some steady play there. They like their ends. I think they're going to move guys around a little bit. And Corey Heatherman's defense, a new defensive coordinator. But yeah, certainly that front seven, and they got to get some support. The safety group, the defensive backs have to be able to come up and make tackles. Can't miss on a guy like Love. That's a big thing. Doesn't matter, who it is. Whatever line of defense, you can't miss tackles in a game like this, and that's always a concern for game one, because you've not been hitting like that when it comes to it. And it's going to be a primetime matchup. We haven't touched on, but it's Sunday night game. I mean, at night at Hard Rock, to open it up, it's all eyes are going to be on the game. Two top 10 teams.
Yeah, and to me, that's the biggest question mark. I think it's going to be a hell of a game, and I think the biggest question is, can Miami stop Jeremiah Love? Because I think Carson Beck's going to be able to figure it out. I think they're going to put some points on the board. I think that's going to be the big question mark to me as we preview this game. Christopher, I can't thank you enough for joining. I want to look at Miami's 2025 schedule. We've kind of brought it up here. Obviously, opening up against Notre Dame, like we discussed here. I want to look at the gauntlet at the end of the year, kind of the ACC gauntlet. Pitt. Virginia Tech. How are you feeling about Miami's schedule as a whole? And then the end of the year is kind of a gauntlet, no?
Yeah, it's an interesting schedule. So you go 4 games to start it off at home. Then they got a bye week, then Florida State, then another bye week. I know internally they're not real happy about that at because obviously you'd want to space out that bye week later on in the season. So that's an interesting thing, but you got the rivalry. So in the first 5 games, you're playing your top 3 rivals, Notre Dame, Florida State, right there out of the gate. And Miami has struggled over the years of being able to, if they do suffer a loss, can they bounce back off of it? They're playing 3 tough games there with the rivalry game. So that's an interesting part with the schedule. The other thing is they don't leave the state of Florida till November with that schedule. So you touched on those games later on in the year. So it'll be interesting. That one, the SMU one's going to be interesting, just with that ties to Miami with some of those former Miami guys, but also Rhett Lashley, a former Miami coach. So we'll see. I think that's obviously a big one in terms of ACC standings, the way it's projected out to be. But overall, the schedule starting out at home, you get Florida at home, you get Notre Dame at home. Those are big ones, and certainly that's where you want to be when you play these big games.
Let me ask you about the matchup against the Gators. I mean, I saw something that came out kind of documenting the Miami's dominant victory against Florida last year, and I was watching. I was like, damn, like they got you. That was a hell of a victory. This season with Lagway at quarterback, I think Florida's going to be much better than last season, in my opinion. How are you feeling about that game? What are the expectations for the Gators matchup? Go ahead.
Just different teams, as you mentioned, than what we saw last year. You touched on Lagway. Miami's got Beck at kind of a different look. It touched on the receivers. There's obviously turnover from Miami in the back end on defensively there. Yeah. So just a different game. I'm curious what those teams do leading up to that game. With Miami having that Notre Dame game, they also play USF there right before the Florida game. So I think it's going to be a great game as well. Both of these teams, again, Florida's looking to kind of continue the momentum they built last year in that second half. So I'm very interested. But, when you remember in last game, there's no doubt when they played, Miami dominated. They went up there to Gainesville, and, it was a game that I thought Miami was going to have its struggles because going on the road, we heard and we watched Cam Ward play well, but certainly from that game, it really set the tone for the rest of the season with things he did, things the offense did, and really made a statement in game 1. And I'm sure Carson Beck, the offense, the Hurricanes, everybody knows they want to do that in game 1. But I think that can kind of help that game against UF.
Yeah, this is going to be a huge game this season. Huge quarterback matchup. I really can't wait to see it. What's the overall expectation, in your opinion? Does Miami have to win 10 games? Is it college football playoff? Is that the expectation for Miami to take the next step and not regress from last season, so to speak? What's the expectation overall?
Yeah, I think they've got to get in the ACC championship game. I think that has to be the goal, and certainly you want to win it. They've not won it since they've joined the ACC. So that would be a huge step in getting to the playoffs. That would be a big thing as well. And it will be interesting if they do get to the ACC championship game, which they did once before, and it didn't go well. They got blown out by Clemson. Is that going to be good enough? And I guess we'll just kind of see, but certainly you don't want to take a step back, and you don't want to miss that again. They got a great quarterback and back in the transfer portal, and, essentially based on the success they had with Cam Ward. So you're getting that. It's very hard to get a quality quarterback like Beck every year. So you got to make sure you take advantage of these opportunities. And they've got some key guys in year 3 in the program that I think, like a Francis Maui-Noah there, right tackle, I think he'll depart after this year. So you got to take advantage of good players when they're in your program. And I think it would be a huge disappointment. They don't win 10 games. And if they don't make it to the ACC championship game, I think it would be disappointing, and it would be interesting to see how it goes. And but yeah, I think the expectations is for success, and then building on last year, even understanding how Cam Ward and the offense, the number one ranked offense in the country, that's hard to duplicate. But getting 10 wins, 10 plus wins would certainly be the expectation for Miami, its fan base, and the coaches. That they're all speaking that way as well. They want to build on what they did a year ago.
Pressure's on. I mean, the dudes are there, and Mario Cristobal has been recruiting. And that's my final question for you, Christopher. I can't thank you enough for joining. I had Steve Kim. I don't know if you know Steve Kim. I had him on my show to discuss Jackson Cantwell. You guys landed a massive commitment from him, number one offensive lineman, class of 26. What was your reaction to that, and what is the significance of that? Miami landing a kid like that, him choosing Miami over Georgia, him being so outright as he did, and obviously him going to coach Mirabal, who I think is a hell of an offensive line coach, is one of the better offensive line coaches in college football for sure. What is the significance of Miami landing Cantwell?
It just shows again that the reputation that Cristobal, and as you mentioned, the offensive line coach Alex Mirabal, for being quality offensive line coaches. And this kind of continues it. And that's what you want to do. If you're any program, when you have positions that you feel is going to be a strength in recruiting or building or player development, you want to continue to do that each and every year. This is what we do. This is how we develop guys. And they want the track record, the continuing of success. And I think that really led to Cantwell landing at Miami. Also, Miami placing a big emphasis on wanting guys like that, huge offensive linemen like Jackson. I had a chance to talk with Jackson when he was in Florida in January and talking about his recruitment, listing all the schools. It was definitely interesting to see how, from that point until the point where he committed to Miami, how everything just kind of transpired. But he's been down to obviously, and just enjoyed it, and he enjoys the track record. So, yeah, it's a big get. Anytime you get a player, a premier guy at his position that almost every school would like to have, that's a big get. And when you have guys like that can really help maybe other offensive linemen or maybe other offensive players or maybe a quarterback, you're hoping guys like that can really help out. So, but yeah, there's no doubt when you place an emphasis on recruiting a certain position, you want to have success in that. And that's what they did in Cantwell.
I think it was. I thought it was a huge get for Mario Cristobal. Obviously, he's got Big Francis, the right tackle. I mean, he's the next cat in line, really, because I think Big Francis, he plays cards right. He can go top 10 or first round in the NFL draft for sure. And Cantwell, obviously, great get for Cristobal. Obviously, love the trenches going back to Oregon with Coach Mirabal. I think hell of a get, hell of a coach to go ahead and coach the kid. When I saw that, I thought I was really, really excited and happy. I was like, damn, that's a really, really good get for Cristobal, and we know how much he loves the trenches. So, man, love getting your insight on that. Christopher, I can't thank you enough for joining, my man. If you guys go check out Christopher, owner of InsideTheU, does a hell of a job over there. Go check him out. Christopher, I can't thank you enough for joining, my man. Thank you so much. Would love to have you on again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate the kind words.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for joining. Shout out to Christopher Stock, main man, owner of InsideTheU. Go check him out. He does a hell of a job over there. He's the main man. Been doing this since 2003, veteran in the game. Shout out to him for joining the show, man. Great interview. Great perspective on the Canes. We got a lot more to discuss here on Bailey Price Media Live. If you're watching, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, become a member. We're trying to get more members here on Bailey Price Media Live. So if you'd like to become a member, go ahead and hit that membership button. It's a pin in the chat, and join the membership. Join the Bailey Price Media Army today. Can't thank you guys all enough for tuning in. Robert Kelly, Eric in the chat, what up? I appreciate you guys tuning in. Let's get into it here. Mary Kay Cabot came out. The Cleveland Browns came out here. The unofficial depth chart here. Nothing has changed. Joe Flacco is 1. Kenny Pickett is 2. Dylan Gabriel is 3. Shedeur Sanders falls at 4. But it'll only be Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders playing in the Browns' second preseason game against the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm really honestly looking forward to this shit. It's on Saturday. It's going to be prime time again. A lot of people are watching. This is a very, very obviously a lot of eyes on this quarterback battle in Cleveland. And I think they're going to come out. I'm not sure. They haven't come out and said it, but I think they're going to come out with Gabriel, probably with the starters. And we're going to really find out a lot because everyone's rooting for that kid to fail, in my opinion. I mean, I don't think anybody is really talking about what's Dylan Gabriel going to look like when it comes out. If he comes out and looks good, there's going to be a lot of headlines, a lot of just question marks. I'm really interested to see how Dylan Gabriel plays. Obviously, we're going to see Shedeur again. I expect Shedeur to pick up right where he left off last weekend. I just think Dylan Gabriel might not play half bad either, and it might make a fucking competition. It might make a lot of conversation for the Browns quarterback room here. I don't know why the Browns haven't traded Kenny Pickett. I'm gonna be honest. I think he's going to the Saints. I watched Spencer Rattler play. I watched Tyler Shook play. I think Spencer Rattler could be the guy down there, but I also think Kenny Pickett playing Kellen Moore's system more recently than the two last season in Philly. I think that might go a long way. So I'm watching for the Saints to trade for Kenny Pickett, I'll be honest. And especially if he's not playing in the Browns' second preseason game with a hamstring injury, I'm really interested to see how that affects him in the quarterback battle, because I know the Browns signed him wanting him to compete with Joe Flacco for the starting job. And it's interesting to watch now that he's hurt again. When will they trade him? What will they do with him? Because if he's hurt, he ain't getting reps, and they're eventually going to get rid of him, because I don't think they're keeping 4 quarterbacks. I have Mary Kay Cabot on the show. She said they're probably not going to keep 4. So it's something to watch with Kenny Pickett. But we're going to see Gabriel. We're going to see Shador here on Saturday, and lots on the line here. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see what Gabriel looks like. Chat, what are your predictions for Saturday? Is Dylan Gabriel going to look good, or is he going to struggle? Let me know what you think in the chat below here. I personally think Dylan Gabriel will play pretty decent. I think they'll probably play him with the starters. That's going to piss a lot of people off, but I think they're probably going to play him with the starters. He probably won't look half bad. I really think that if he can settle in and get comfortable here, he probably won't look half bad. But if he comes out and struggles, that is a tremendous opportunity for Shador. Like, Shador got to come out and ball. He cannot miss a beat here, because that is where you might be able to see Shador overstep Gabriel. That is where I could see the potential there. So a lot on the line here for Saturday in the Browns' second preseason game as they continue their quarterback battle here. But man, nothing has changed right now. As of right now on the Browns quarterback depth chart, all is the same right now. Interesting. Folks, if you're watching, hit that like button here. I wanted to break down one more thing here before we get out of here on this fine Tuesday. Can't thank you all enough for tuning in here. I wanted to kind of continue on something that Matt McChesney and I discussed on 0 to 60. John Gruden has come out and said, I'll be honest with you, I don't bullshit either. I want to coach again. I died of coaching the SEC. And man, when I heard that, I was like, there's a lot of people throwing out different teams like Georgia, etc. John's wife went to Tennessee. John used to coach there, a GA at Tennessee. But the first team that I thought of was Oklahoma. And I think Oklahoma is under a lot of pressure to win. Coach Venables is under a lot of pressure to win here. And they have an interesting schedule here. That second game against Michigan is going to be an absolute test for them. But I think John Gruden could be an absolutely great fit at the University of Oklahoma. I think he could take Norman and really put it on the map in the SEC. What do you think about that? Let me know in the chat whether you agree or disagree. People think if Coach Venables gets fired, that the first call out of Oklahoma will go to Nick Saban. I'll be honest with you. I don't think Nick Saban wants to coach in this era of college football. I think if he wanted to coach, he would have stayed at Bama. I think John Gruden, what he does at Barstool, working with the youth, people seem to really like him at Barstool. I think there's a lot on the table, and he has come out and said, I died to coach from the SEC. I think he could put Norman on the map. Let me know whether you agree or disagree with that. But one thing that happened that could play into John Gruden coaching is his lawsuit against the NFL. Not that he's coaching in the NFL, but the Nevada Supreme Court has ruled in favor of John Gruden in his appeal against the NFL, which means John Gruden will get discovery in his day in court alleging that Roger Goodell in the NFL improperly leaked his emails, leading to his firing as the Raiders coach. Interesting. One other thing I want to show. We know how John Gruden is getting sent all kinds of gear from coaches and programs across the country. Here's him unboxing Oklahoma just to play into the storyline more. Take a listen.
There's no place like Oklahoma. The Oklahoma Sooners. That's where Mark Andrews played tight end. Oh, how about Keith Jackson? You like Jermaine Gresham? They have great players at every position. This is cool or what? I mean, it is a legendary program. They have better quarterbacks that have transferred out of Oklahoma than most teams ever have. This is where Troy Aikman went to college. Caleb Williams went to Oklahoma. Lincoln Riley was at Oklahoma. Bob Stoops. Think of all the great coaches. Chuck Fairbanks. Oklahoma. I wonder where Barry Switzer is right now. I bet he's having a hell of a good time. Look at this right here.
John Gruden says he died of coaching in the SEC, and I think there's a lot of pressure to win in Oklahoma. If Oklahoma has a bad season, do you think John Gruden would be a good fit at Oklahoma? Let me know in the chat whether you agree or disagree, because I think John Gruden could really put Oklahoma on the map, or really put Norman on the map in the SEC. Let me know whether you agree or disagree to that, because I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. But I think the first people would say the first call is Nick Saban. I don't think Nick Saban wants to coach in this era of college football, but I think John Gruden would do a hell of a job, especially at Oklahoma. Man, this has been a good show here, folks. We had my main man, Christopher Stock, owner of InsideTheU, joining the show here. It was an absolute honor getting his perspective on the Miami Hurricanes here on this fine Tuesday. If you're watching, folks, make sure you pound that like button, subscribe, become a member. Thank you to Lucy, Eric, Robert, everybody else in the chat. Can't thank you enough for tuning in here. We're going to be live here on Thursday on Bailey Price Media Live. We got several special guests during the show the rest of the week, and we might have a return of a special guest too. Can't wait to reveal that to you later, guys, later in the week here. But we got massive shows here planned Thursday and Friday. Be here at 4 p.m. Eastern on Bailey Price Media Live. Great show here. Thank you guys all for tuning in and watching. I'll see you guys on Thursday, folks. Peace.